My name is Nikki Gemmell. I'm in a very bad situation. I've been in chronic pain all this year.
Mum sat down on a favourite chair in front of the TV and ate pills like lollies and drank Bailey's Irish cream until she fell asleep.
Have you ever done what you dread to do? Identify someone close to you in a morgue on that thin steel table. I did, just now. And I have to write this out, to piece together what has happened into some kind of coherence. And because writing is my ballast through life's toss. Carry me in on a stretcher from this experience. Carry me in.
A book, a documentary telling of the turmoil of losing your mum to suicide. That was best-selling Australian writer Nikki Gemmell reading from her memoir After. It's just been translated into French. Nikki, I want to congratulate you on the book.
Thank you.
But I also want to hug you.
Thank you.
I also want to call my own mum.
That's good.
In October 2015, you got a call from the police telling you that your mum had been found dead under suspicious circumstances. There's nothing more horrendous. You went straight to writing to deal with it. Tell us about After.
I wrote After my book to understand what my elderly mother had done, why she'd done it without telling me, without telling anyone in her family or her closest friends. This was a very lonely, bleak death of an elderly woman. She was in her late 70s. She suffered from chronic pain. I had no idea what a bully chronic pain is in terms of taking over your life and holding your life hostage. And what happened was she had an operation about a year before her death, and she became addicted to opioids, OxyContin, which, you know, America has a huge opioid crisis at the moment, and my country, Australia, does too. And my mother found it too easy to access opioids. And so in the last year of her life, she was in this tunnel. She couldn't see the light. She couldn't get herself out of it. She was a woman of a certain era and a certain age. She was too proud to articulate that she was going down. And in the end, she just decided the easiest, the best thing for her to do was to take her own life and not implicate anyone in the process, not tell me, her daughter, or my brothers, because we would have perhaps been implicated too then, and we would have been subject to a police investigation about our mother's death. But in the process, I was subjected to the police investigation, and I had to go through giving a police statement and all the rest about her. It was a traumatic experience, and so I wrote to understand and to help others with elderly relatives, or they may be elderly themselves, to help us all through this very complicated process of ageing.
For years, your mum was in contact with the euthanasia advocate Exit.
Yes.
You've said in the book and in the documentary that you wish you'd let her have that conversation.
Yes. Exit is an organisation, a euthanasia organisation that began in Australia but now has spread across Europe, and it's in the UK as well. Huge advocates of euthanasia, and they detail a process of how to do it. What I didn't realise with my mother, she had been secretly in contact with them for about 8-10 years before she died, and she found a community there of like-minded people. Occasionally, over the years, she tried to talk to me about how she was pro-euthanasia and, if the time come one day, she might do that kind of thing. And I laughed it off. I didn't want to know about it. I didn't, as a daughter who loved her dearly, I didn't want to have that conversation. And I'd put my hands over my ears like a little child, and I'd go, "Oh, mummy, what about your grandchildren? Don't you want to see them grow up?" I know now I did it all wrong. I should have sat down with her over a big glass of wine and said, "Mum, tell me what you're thinking. I love you. I will help you however I can. We just need to communicate. And we never did. And so that's why when she did what she did, she overdosed on her OxyContin. She washed it down with Bailey's Irish Cream. As the Exit International organisation, they have a handbook, and she had acquired that on the black market. She did all those kind of things. I had no idea. And sadly, tragically, she didn't feel able to articulate all of this to me, her daughter.
Nikki, I don't know what to say. It's a story about what happened to your mum, but it's also a story about mothers and daughters.
Yes.
We spoke to Audrey Chaput, the director of the American Library in Paris, about the role of mothers and daughters in literature.
Mother-daughter relationships are ripe for literary excavation. Jeanette Winterson's adoptive mother in Why Be Happy When You Could Be Normal, I see it as an exploration of how the lack of motherly affection can actually resonate throughout your entire life. Jaloux Guo's, please forgive the pronunciation, Nine Continents, a memoir in and out of China. And the mother is this incredibly cold figure who ends up representing everything that Jaloux is trying to escape. Are You My Mother? A comic drama by Alison Bechdel. It's a fascinating graphic novel. The reader gets the feeling that she's processing through the writing and drawing of this book, processing her relationship with her mother and finding that her mother is just as complex and nuanced and fallible as she is herself.
Such an interesting theme in literature. Your book is, I guess, kind of therapy as well for you as the writer. One of the questions you ask is if your mother's actions should be celebrated as an act of empowerment and control or condemned for the emotional havoc they caused. I wondered, do you have an answer to that now?
It's a bit of everything. My mother, we had an incredibly complicated relationship. My mother was the love of my life, but also the hate of my life. When we were good, we were very, very good. But oh my goodness, when we were bad, we were horrid. And I feel terrible saying that I had said to a few of my girlfriends, when my mother dies, I'll be relieved. And I feel awful thinking back on that now, but that's how I felt for so many years of my adult life. I felt like my life was held hostage by my mum's bitterness and rage and the fact that I wasn't who she wanted me to be. She wanted this image of the perfect daughter, which I could never fulfill. But I guess through writing the book, I came to understand she's just a woman, as we all are, deeply flawed, complex, complicated. There are so many shades in there. We have to be forgiving. And interestingly for me, it was the French writers who introduced me to the complexity of mother-daughter relationships and made me feel normal. When I read Marguerite Duras's The Lover as a teenager, it was like, oh, finally, I'm reading someone who makes me feel normal, who has a mother like my mother. They're out there. And for me, my book is a love letter to a difficult woman in a way. And now that she's gone, oh my goodness, I just wish I had done so many things differently and seen my mother in a more forgiving light.
You've written 13 novels and 4 works of non-fiction, books translated into 22 languages. You have a really special relationship, though, here in France with the French people. You're described as a female Jack Kerouac. The French literary magazine Lire has included you on a list of what it called the 50 most important writers in the world. Explain this relationship with France.
Well, I will say, I think for me, the tradition of my writing is to be stripped bare, excruciatingly honest, because I know that honesty connects. And it's always been the French writers that I've gravitated towards, the female writers, Marguerite Duras, Annie Ernaux, Simone de Beauvoir, Colette. All through my life, over the past 4 decades of reading, it's the French female writers that have influenced me the most. And I feel like if I can possibly in some way emulate their honesty, their voices are my tuning fork for my own writing. And so I guess perhaps that's why France responds in the way it does to my writing, because it's very, very honest about sex, relationships, mother-daughter relationships. Finally, I've written about my own relationship with my mother. I'd never done that before in all the books that I've written, and After is the first time I've tackled that one. And that's the biggest one of my life, I'd say, the biggest subject of my life.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. We're going to end each show with, I guess, cultural pick of the moment. What have you chosen for us?
The film Vice. It's exhausting and grueling and terrifying. I saw it with a lot of journalists, and we just all sat at the end of that film and thought, and all said to each other, but we knew that. We knew that about Dick Cheney. It's an American film about the vice president, about a decade ago. And it's like, we knew all that, but nothing happened. He endured. He kept on going with Halliburton and all the rest of it. And then we looked at each other and thought, and Trump. And he endures. And we know all this. So it will be interesting to see if something happens. So I feel like Vice is a very, very timely film and a terrifying film in terms of how politics works now, how the media works now, how we shift the language to make it work for all of us. And we all should see it. It's a great film.
Okay, I think it's got 8 Oscar nominations.
Yes.
We'll see how it does
Yes.
In February. Nikki, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you so much.
I wish we had more time. Nikki Gemmell's book After has just been translated into French. Remember our website. We're also on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.
Vice presidency is a mostly symbolic job. However, if we came to a different understanding, I can handle the more mundane jobs, overseeing bureaucracy, military, energy, and foreign policy.
Yeah, right. I like that.